I found the receipt in her coat pocket on a Tuesday. Not for jewelry or clothes or any of the normal things my wife Margaret bought. This one was for a hotel room in Atlantic City, dated 3 weeks ago, a Tuesday when she'd told me she was at a marketing conference in Philadelphia. The thing about betrayal is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like one of those optical illusions that suddenly clicks into focus, and you realize the picture you've been staring at your whole life was actually something else entirely. I stood in our walk-in closet, her cashmere coat in one hand, that crumpled piece of paper in the other, and felt my entire world tilt sideways. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of coming home to her smile, her perfume in the hallway, her voice calling me from the kitchen. 7 years of believing in something that apparently never existed. My name is Lucas Bennett. I'm 38 years old. I work as a tech consultant for Fortune 500 companies, and until that Tuesday, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I was wrong about a lot of things. The receipt was just the beginning. Once I started looking, really looking, the evidence piled up like snow in a blizzard. Credit card statements with charges I didn't recognize, text messages that disappeared from her phone. The way she'd started going to the gym at odd hours, always looking perfect, always smelling like expensive perfume I'd never bought her. I didn't confront her right away. That would have been stupid, emotional, the kind of thing that gets you nowhere except divorced and broke. Instead, I did what I do best. I gathered information. I documented everything. I became a ghost in my own house, watching, waiting, learning the truth about the woman I'd promised to love forever. 3 weeks of careful investigation told me everything I needed to know. Margaret was having an affair with her college boyfriend, Blake Thornton. He'd shown up at her 20-year reunion 8 months ago, all charm and success stories about his real estate development company. They'd reconnected, and apparently rekindling old flames was more important than our marriage vows. I found their email exchanges on her laptop. She'd gotten sloppy, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. The messages were nauseating. Pet names, inside jokes, plans for their future together. Blake was 42, divorced twice, and from what I could tell, exactly the kind of man who'd sleep with another man's wife without losing a minute of sleep over it. The night I decided to act, Margaret was out at another client dinner. I sat in my home office, staring at the screen showing Blake's flight itinerary. He was flying in from Miami tomorrow. They'd booked a weekend getaway under fake names. Amateur hour. My neighbor, Frank Morrison, knocked on my door around 10. Frank was ex-police, retired early after taking a bullet in the line of duty. He'd moved in next door 2 years ago, and we'd become friends over beers and weekend barbecues. "You look like hell," Frank said, settling into my couch with the beer I handed him. "Margaret's cheating on me," I said. "No point in dancing around it." Frank's expression didn't change. "I know. You know. Saw her leaving with some guy 3 weeks ago when you were in Boston. Different car every time. Figured you'd notice eventually." He took a long pull from his beer. "What are you going to do about it?" That was frank. No judgment, no platitudes, just the question that mattered. "I'm going to make them both regret it," I said. Frank studied me for a long moment. "Legal regret or the other kind?" "I'm not going to jail for them," I said, "but I'm not going to let them walk away clean either." "Good," Frank said. He finished his beer and stood up. "Come by tomorrow. I've got some ideas." I confronted Margaret the next evening. I'd planned it carefully, printed out the emails, the credit card statements, the hotel receipts, laid them all out on the kitchen counter like evidence in a courtroom. She came home at 7, all smiles and perfume, carrying takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. The smile faltered and disappeared when she saw me. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down the food. I gestured to the counter. "Take a look." I watched her face as she shuffled through the papers, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her hands start to shake. It was almost satisfying. Almost. "Lucas, don't," I said. Don't insult me with lies. I know everything. Blake Thornton, Atlantic City, the weekend trips, all of it. She sat down hard on one of the kitchen stools. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Then something shifted in her expression, something cold and distant. "What do you want me to say?" she asked. "That I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry you found out this way." "That's it? You're sorry I found out?" She looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "We've been drifting apart for years, Lucas. You're married to your work. I needed something more. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it? Would you have listened?" She stood up, crossing her arms. "When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you looked at me like I mattered?" The thing was, she wasn't entirely wrong. I had been buried in work, chasing promotions and bigger clients. But that didn't justify what she'd done. It didn't justify the lies, the sneaking around, the complete betrayal of everything we'd built together. "I want a divorce," I said. "Fine," she said. "I want the house." "You can have it," I said. "I want out of this marriage and away from you." She laughed, actually laughed. "You're going to make this easy?" "I'm going to make this fast," I said. "I'm done, Margaret, completely done." She gathered her purse and coat. "I'm staying at a hotel tonight. We can talk to lawyers next week." "One more thing," I said as she reached the door. "Does Blake know you're married?" She turned back, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "Of course he does. Does he know I know?" "Not yet." "Good," I said. "Tell him I'm looking forward to meeting him." After she left, I sat in the empty kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my failed marriage. The Thai food sat on the counter, getting cold. I didn't have an appetite anyway. Frank knocked on my door an hour later. "She's gone?" "For now." "Come on," he said. "Time to talk strategy." We sat in Frank's garage, surrounded by his collection of tools and surveillance equipment from his cop days. He'd set up a workbench with a laptop and several phones. "First rule," Frank said, "is that we don't do anything illegal. Second rule is that we don't do anything that can be traced back to you." "What did you have in mind?" I asked. Frank pulled up a file on his laptop. "I did some digging on Blake Thornton. Guy's got a lot of skeletons in his closet." The file was extensive. Frank had tracked down Blake's business dealings, his failed marriages, his shady real estate ventures. Apparently, Blake's success story was built on a foundation of lies and questionable business practices. "He's been sued 4 times in the last 6 years, Frank said, mostly by investors who claim he misrepresented property values. Nothing stuck, but there's a pattern." "Can we use this?" "Maybe," Frank said. "But there's something better. Blake's current development project is funded by a group of investors who don't know about his past. If that information got out, they'd pull their funding fast." I leaned back in my chair, thinking, how do we make that happen? Frank grinned. "Leave that to me. But first, we need to have a little chat with Blake, face to face." "When?" "Tomorrow. He's flying in tomorrow afternoon, remember? I say we meet him at the airport." The airport was crowded with business travelers and families. Frank and I waited near the baggage claim, watching passengers stream past. I'd seen photos of Blake, but nothing prepared me for seeing him in person. He was tall, fit, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than my car payment. The kind of guy who'd never had to work hard for anything, who'd coasted through life on charm and good looks. The kind of guy who'd sleep with another man's wife and never lose a minute of sleep. "That's him," I said. Frank nodded. "Let me do the talking first." We approached Blake as he pulled his suitcase from the carousel. He looked up, confused, as Frank stepped into his path. "Blake Thornton?" Frank asked. "Yeah, who's asking?" Frank smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "I'm a friend of Lucas Bennett's. This is Lucas." Blake's face went pale as he looked at me. To his credit, he didn't try to run or lie. He just stood there, suitcase in hand, looking like he'd been caught stealing from the register. I think we need to talk, I said. I don't have anything to say to you, Blake said, trying to move past us. Frank blocked his path. That's fine. We'll do the talking. You just listen. We walked Blake to the parking garage, away from the crowds. He followed reluctantly, probably calculating his options. When we reached Frank's truck, Frank leaned against it, arms crossed. Here's the situation, Frank said. We know about the affair. We know about your business dealings. We know about the investors you've been lying to. I haven't lied to anyone, Blake said. Really? Frank pulled out a folder from his truck. Because these lawsuit filings say otherwise. So do these financial records showing you inflating property values to attract investors. Blake's jaw tightened. What do you want? What do I want? I stepped forward. I want you to understand something. You don't get to walk away from this without consequences. You don't get to destroy my marriage and just move on to your next conquest. Your marriage was already dead, Blake said. Margaret told me. I didn't let him finish. I grabbed his collar and slammed him against Frank's truck. Frank didn't stop me. Listen carefully, I said, my face inches from his. I don't care what Margaret told you. I don't care what lies you've been feeding each other. You crossed a line, and now you're going to pay for it. You threatening me? Blake tried to push me away, but I held firm. No threat, I said. A promise. I'm going to make your life hell. I'm going to expose every dirty secret, every lie, every shady deal. By the time I'm done, you won't have a business, you won't have investors, and you definitely won't have my wife. I let him go. He straightened his suit, trying to regain some dignity. You can't prove anything, he said. Frank laughed. We don't have to prove anything in court. We just have to tell your investors what we know. Let them do their own investigation. Blake's phone rang. He looked at the screen, Margaret's name flashing. He didn't answer. Smart choice, I said. Stay away from her. Stay away from me. And if I ever see you again, we won't be having a conversation. We left him standing there in the parking garage, holding his suitcase like a lost tourist. As we drove away, Frank glanced at me. Feel better? He asked. Not yet, I said. But I will. The next 2 weeks were a careful campaign of destruction. Frank and I worked like a well-oiled machine. He handled the research and setup. I executed the plans. First, we went after Blake's car. He drove a Porsche, midnight blue, probably his pride and joy. We didn't touch it directly. That would have been criminal. Instead, we made sure it got towed from every parking spot in the city. Expired registration, parking in fire zones, blocking driveways. By the end of week 1, Blake had racked up over $3,000 in towing fees and citations. Small victories, but satisfying. Next, we targeted his business. Frank had contacts from his police days, people who knew people. We didn't spread lies, we just made sure the truth about Blake's past reached the right ears. His investors started asking questions, his partners started getting nervous. I watched from a distance as Blake's perfect life began to crack. He stopped posting on social media, his office lights stayed on late into the night, and best of all, he stopped seeing Margaret. Margaret, for her part, was unraveling. She'd moved back into the house, her hotel stay had been temporary, but we weren't speaking. She spent her days trying to reach Blake, leaving voicemails and texts that went unanswered. She'd realized too late that she'd bet everything on the wrong horse. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen. What did you do to him? She demanded. Do to who? I asked, pouring coffee. Blake. He won't answer my calls, he won't see me. What did you say to him? I told him the truth, I said. That you're married, that he's a fraud, that he should stay away from both of us. You had no right? I had every right, I interrupted. You're still my wife, at least until the divorce is final. She slammed her hand on the counter. You're destroying his life. No, I said calmly. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. If his life can't survive the truth, that's his problem. I hate you, she said. Good, I said. the feelings mutual. She left the kitchen, and I heard her crying in the bedroom. Part of me felt guilty, the part that still remembered loving her. But that part was getting smaller every day. Frank came by that night with news. Blake's biggest investor pulled out. Company called Meridian Group. They got wind of his past lawsuits and decided they didn't want the risk. How much did he lose? About $4 million in funding. His development project is dead in the water without it. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd had in weeks. What's next? We wait, Frank said. Let him stew. Let him make mistakes. Desperate men do stupid things. Frank was right. 2 days later, Blake showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me. Mr. Bennett, there's a Blake Thornton here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. Send him in, I said. Blake stormed into my office, looking nothing like the polished executive I'd met at the airport. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he had the desperate energy of a cornered animal. You damn fool, he hissed, the door crashing behind him. Have a seat, I said, not looking up from my computer. You've been sabotaging me, spreading lies about my business. No lies, I said. Just the truth. Have a seat. I want this to stop, he said, but he sat down anyway. Whatever you're doing, whatever you think you're accomplishing, it ends now. I finally looked at him. Or what? You'll sleep with my wife again? Oh, wait. She's available if you want her. I'm done with her. This isn't about Margaret anymore. No, I agreed. It's about you. It's about consequences. You thought you could walk into my life, take what's mine, and walk away clean. You were wrong. I could go to the police, he said. And tell them what? That I told your investors the truth about your business practices? That's not illegal, Blake. It's called due diligence. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. What do you want from me? I want you to feel what I felt, I said. I want you to wake up every morning wondering what's going to fall apart next. I want you to know what betrayal feels like. I'm losing everything, he said quietly. Good, I said. Now get out of my office. He stood, moving like an old man. At the door, he turned back. Margaret loved you, you know. She really did. But you were never there. Get out, I said. After he left, I sat in my office, staring at the city skyline. Margaret loved me. Past tense. Maybe that was true. Maybe I had been absent, buried in work, taking her for granted. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. That didn't make any of this okay. My phone rang. It was Margaret. We need to talk, she said. Tonight. Fine, I said. I'll be home at 7. Margaret was waiting in the living room when I got home. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable and scared. Then she started talking, and the illusion shattered. You have to stop, she said. Whatever you're doing to Blake, it has to stop. Why should I? Because this isn't about him anymore. It's about us, about our marriage. I laughed. It was harsh and bitter. Our marriage ended the moment you slept with him. There is no us anymore. I made a mistake, she said. I was lonely and confused, and Blake was there. But it's over now. He won't even talk to me. Can't we just move past this? Move past it? I stared at her. You betrayed me in the worst possible way, and you want me to just move past it? People make mistakes, Lucas. People cheat. It doesn't have to end everything. It does for me, I said. I'm not the kind of man who shares his wife with another man. I'm not the kind of man who forgives betrayal. She stood up, anger replacing the tears. Then you're going to be alone for the rest of your life, because nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to live up to your impossible standards. My impossible standards? I said. You mean expecting my wife to be faithful? Yeah, I guess that is asking a lot. I'm leaving, she said. I'm moving out tomorrow. You can have the house, the cars, everything. I just want out of this marriage. Good, I said. The lawyer will send you the papers. She left, and I was alone in the house. Our house. The place where we'd planned to raise kids, to grow old together, to build a life. Now it was just a building full of memories I wanted to forget. Frank called an hour later. "Blake's on the move. My guy at the airport says he just booked a one-way ticket to Miami, leaving tomorrow morning." "Running away," I said. "Looks like it. His business is tanked, his reputation's shot, and from what I hear, he's got creditors breathing down his neck." "Good riddance," I said. "There's more," Frank said. "Margaret booked a ticket on the same flight." I was silent for a moment, processing this. "She's going with him?" "Looks that way. Guess they decided to try for that happily ever after." "Let them," I said. "They deserve each other." But even as I said it, I felt something twist in my chest. Anger, yes, but also something deeper. A sense of unfinished business. Blake was running, Margaret was running, and they thought they could just start over somewhere else, leaving the wreckage behind. "I'm not done yet," I said to Frank. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking they don't get to just fly off into the sunset. I'm thinking they need one more reminder of what they did." "Lucas, don't worry," I said. "Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just a farewell gift." The next morning I called in sick to work and headed to the airport. I didn't tell Frank what I was planning. He would have tried to talk me out of it, and I wasn't in the mood for reason. I found them at the gate, sitting together, looking like any other couple heading off on vacation. Margaret saw me first. Her face went white. "Lucas," she said, standing up. "What are you doing here?" "I came to say goodbye," I said. Blake stood too, positioning himself between Margaret and me. "You need to leave, now." "In a minute," I said. I looked at Margaret. "I want you to know something. I loved you, really loved you. I would have done anything for you, and you threw it all away for him." I jerked my chin at Blake. "I hope it was worth it." "Lucas, please, I'm not finished," I said. "You're going to Miami together. You're going to try to start over, but it won't work. You know why? Because relationships built on betrayal always fail. You'll never trust him, and he'll never trust you. Every time he's late, you'll wonder if he's with someone else. Every time you look at him, you'll remember what you did to me." "That's enough," Blake said. "Yeah," I agreed. "It is. One more thing, though, Blake. Those investors you lied to, they filed a lawsuit yesterday, civil fraud. My lawyer made sure they had all the documentation they needed. You might want to get a good attorney. You're going to need one." Blake's face went from pale to red. "You vindictive bastard." "No," I said. "Just a man who believes in consequences. Have a nice flight." I walked away before Blake could respond. Behind me, I heard Margaret crying. I didn't look back. Frank was waiting for me at the parking garage. "Feel better now?" "Yeah," I said. "I do." "What now?" "Now," I said, "I move on with my life." 3 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a modern place downtown with a view of the river. The divorce was final. The house was sold. Margaret and Blake were in Miami, according to mutual friends, though their relationship was already rocky. Frank knocked on my door, carrying a six-pack. "Brought beer and news." "What news?" I asked, letting him in. "Blake's lawsuit went to trial. He settled for $2 million, basically bankrupted him." "Couldn't happen to a nicer guy," I said, opening 2 beers. "There's more," Frank said. "Margaret called the house. The new owners gave her my number. She wants to talk to you." "What about?" "She didn't say, just that it was important." I thought about it for a long moment. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her fade into the past, but another part, the part that had loved her once, was curious. "Give me her number," I said. I called her that night. She answered on the first ring. "Lucas," she said. Her voice sounded different, tired. "Thank you for calling." "What do you want, Margaret?" "I wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not just say the words. I destroyed our marriage. I destroyed your trust. And I'm sorry. Okay, I said. Is that all? Blake and I broke up, she said. Turns out you were right. We couldn't trust each other. Every fight ended with accusations. Every doubt turned into an argument. It was toxic. I'm not going to say I told you so. You just did, she said, and I heard a ghost of her old humor. Look, I'm not calling to ask you to take me back. I know that's impossible. I just wanted you to know that I understand now, what I threw away, what I lost. Good, I said. I hope you learned something. I did, she said. I learned that some mistakes you can't take back. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. We talked for a few more minutes, saying the things we probably should have said months ago. When I hung up, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, I wasn't ready for that, but closure, a sense that this chapter of my life was finally ending. Frank stayed late that night, and we talked about the future, about moving on, about second chances, about whether revenge had been worth it. Do you regret it? Frank asked. Everything you did to Blake? I thought about it. No, he deserved it. They both did. And did it make you feel better? Yeah, I said. It did. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe I should have taken the high road, been the bigger man. But I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who fights back, the guy who makes sure betrayal has consequences. Nothing wrong with that, Frank said. Sometimes people need to learn the hard way. What about you? I asked. Any regrets about helping me? Frank smiled. Hell no. Most fun I've had since I retired. We clinked our beer bottles together, two men who'd waged a quiet war and won. The next morning I woke up to sunlight streaming through my apartment windows. I made coffee, stood on my balcony and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Margaret was picking up the pieces of her life. Somewhere out there, Blake was dealing with the consequences of his choices. And me? I was free. Free from betrayal, free from lies, free from a marriage that had become a prison. The revenge hadn't fixed everything. I still had scars, still had moments of anger and bitterness. But it had given me something important. Closure. The knowledge that I'd fought back, that I hadn't been a victim, that I'd taken control of my own story. I thought about Blake, about our first confrontation at the airport. He'd asked what I wanted from him. At the time, I'd said I wanted him to feel what I felt. But that wasn't quite right. What I really wanted was for the world to make sense again, for there to be balance, for betrayal to have consequences. And now it did. I finished my coffee and went inside to get ready for work. I had a meeting with a new client, a fresh start with a company that wanted to revamp their entire tech infrastructure. It was the kind of challenge I loved, the kind of project that would consume me for months. Life moved on. It always does. The question is whether you move with it or get left behind. I chose to move forward. Frank called me that afternoon. Got something for you. Consider it a closing gift. What is it? Photos. Blake's new place in Miami. It's a dump. Studio apartment in a bad neighborhood. His Porsche's gone. He's driving a 15-year-old Honda. You're still keeping tabs on him? Professional habit, Frank said. Once a cop, always a cop. Besides, I figured you'd want to know that the consequences stuck. He was right. I did want to know. Not because I took pleasure in Blake's suffering, though I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good, but because it confirmed something important. Actions have consequences. Betrayal has a price. And sometimes, revenge is justice. That night, I went out for dinner at a new restaurant downtown, sat at the bar, ordered a steak and a scotch, and struck up a conversation with the woman next to me. Her name was Amelia. She was a lawyer, and she made me laugh for the first time in months. You seem happy, she said, or at least at peace. I am, I said. Just came through a rough patch. Divorce? She guessed. That obvious? I'm a divorce lawyer, she said, smiling. I can spot the signs. We talked for 2 hours. Nothing serious, nothing heavy. Just two people enjoying each other's company. When I left the restaurant, I had her number and plans for dinner next week. Life moved on. 6 months after the divorce, I was a different man. Not better or worse, just different. The change wasn't immediate. It had been gradual, like the shift in the seasons. The old me, the one who was naive and trusting, had slowly disappeared. In his place was someone else, someone tougher, someone more guarded. But there was also a certain clarity about me now, a hard-earned wisdom that had come from living through the wreckage of betrayal and making it out on the other side. I had learned things about myself, some good, some less so. I'd learned that I was capable of cold, calculated revenge, that I could dismantle someone's life with patience and precision. I had a dark side that I'd never fully acknowledged before, a side I hadn't wanted to see. The man who could remain calm in the face of utter devastation and methodically tear down everything in his path. But I had also learned that I was resilient, that I could survive betrayal, that I could rebuild. That old Mark, the one who believed in fairness and happy endings, had ended in that kitchen, Amelia's phone cold in my hand. But the new Mark, the one who knew how to fight back, how to take control of his own narrative, he was stronger, smarter, a survivor. Amelia and I had been dating for 3 months now. In some ways, it felt like I was starting over again. But this time, I wasn't jumping into anything blindly. I wasn't going to allow myself to be hurt the way I had been before. Amelia knew about Margaret, about Blake, about everything. I had laid it all out for her, the truth of what had happened, the betrayal I had suffered. She had listened, really listened, without judgment. She didn't pity me or try to tell me that everything would be okay. Instead, she said something that stuck with me. You did what you had to do. Some people might call it revenge. I call it standing up for yourself. It was a simple statement, but it held more weight than she probably realized. For the first time, someone saw what I had done not as petty vengeance, but as a necessary act of self-preservation. I hadn't done it to hurt Margaret or Blake. I had done it to reclaim my life, to remind myself that I wasn't powerless, that I had the right to fight back when my world was torn apart. And in a way, that realization made everything I had done feel less like a victory over them and more like a victory for myself. I had stood up for who I was, for what I deserved, and I was finally learning how to move forward without fear. Frank had become a constant in my life. He was the brother I'd never had, the kind of guy who could get straight to the point, offer brutal honesty, and never ask questions he didn't want to hear the answers to. We still met for beers every week, still talked about our respective cases, his from his cop days, mine from the courtroom. Frank never once asked if I regretted what we'd done to Max and Amelia. He didn't need to. He knew the answer. Frank, more than anyone, understood that sometimes doing the right thing didn't look like the right thing to others. Sometimes you had to go to war with the world, and sometimes that meant taking your enemy down one piece at a time. As for Margaret and Blake, they had faded into the background of my life, footnotes in a chapter I didn't need to revisit. The last I heard, Margaret had moved back to the area, working at a smaller marketing firm and living alone. I wasn't sure what had happened with her emotionally, but I didn't need to know. She was a shadow of the person she had once been. And Blake? Still stuck in Miami, trying to rebuild his business with limited success. He was fighting a losing battle. They both had paid the price for their choices. And me? I'd paid a price too. Not the same as theirs, but I had lost something valuable. I had lost my innocence, my trust, and my belief in happily ever after. The idea that love conquers all, that good people always win in the end. But in return, I had gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I could fight back, that I didn't have to be a victim, that I could rewrite my story. I could live my life on my terms now, not on the terms that others had set for me. One evening, Amelia and I were walking through the city, enjoying the last hints of summer. The sun was just starting to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. As we crossed the street, I saw her, Margaret, across the street. She saw me too. For a moment, we just looked at each other, as if neither one of us knew how to react. Then she smiled, a sad, resigned smile, and turned to continue walking. Amelia squeezed my hand gently. "Was that her?" "Yeah," I said, my voice steady but soft. "Do you still love her?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I wasn't sure I had ever really loved Margaret. In the beginning, maybe. But that was before everything happened. Before the lies, the betrayal, before the curtain had been pulled back and I saw the real her. "No," I said finally. "I don't think I ever really knew her. You can't love someone you don't know." Amelia looked at me, her expression unreadable for a second, then her lips curled into a small, approving smile. "Good answer." We kept walking, and as we moved down the street, I realized something. Something that had been sitting in the back of my mind for a while now. Revenge had never really been about hurting Margaret or Blake. It had never been about them at all. It had been about me. It had been about reclaiming myself from the wreckage they had left behind. It had been about proving that I wasn't powerless, that betrayal didn't have to destroy me, that I could take back control of my story. I had done it. I had taken that power back, piece by piece, until I was holding all of it, and it felt good. The past would always be there, a scar that would never fully heal, a scar I'd carry with me forever. But scars are just proof that you survived something that tried to break you. They're marks of resilience, not weakness. They're badges of honor, not shame. I had survived. More than that, I had won. Not because I destroyed Blake's business or ruined Margaret's dreams. That wasn't the point. The point was that I had refused to be a victim. I had stood up, fought back, and taken the pain and anger that had consumed me and channeled it into something purposeful. I had turned my suffering into strength. That night, as I lay in bed next to Amelia, I thought about the man I had been before Margaret's betrayal. He had been naive, trusting, maybe a little complacent. That man was gone, replaced by someone else, someone harder, more cautious, less willing to believe in fairy tales and happy endings. But he was also stronger, more honest with himself, more alive than he had ever been before. "What are you thinking about?" Amelia asked, her voice soft as she shifted closer to me. "The future," I said, my voice steady. I could feel the weight of the words. I wasn't lying. "And what does it look like?" she asked, her fingers tracing circles on my chest. "Good," I said. "It looks good." For the first time in a long time, I meant it. The future didn't scare me anymore. I had made it through the worst of it. I had reclaimed my life and found my strength. The betrayal had changed me, but the revenge had freed me. And now, finally, I was ready to move on. Not to forget, because I would never forget, but to live. To take everything I had learned and build something new, something better, something mine.